Shall I make an entrance or just sit? Okay, I can sit in the red chair. I'll just blend right in.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to National City Christian Church for our weekly Music at Midday concert. My name is Mike McMahon, and I'm happy to welcome you on behalf of the staff and the members of this wonderful community. We do these concerts pretty much every week from September through June, and so if you enjoy today's concert, I hope you'll come back and join us again. If you're here for the very first time, you might want to read something about the organ in our program, also in the other brochure that we have about the history of this building and its place in this city. This concert series, I should say, is self-supporting, meaning we rely on you to help us make it happen every week. So if you're able to make a donation by cash or check, we have collection plates here at the front of the sanctuary and also at the back of the sanctuary. And you can also go online and make a donation there at nationalcitycc.org. That way we get to put your name on the back of this program. And I see many of our supporters here today. Today we're by the way, if you want to know more about the organ, there are these great displays in the back of the sanctuary that give a lot of information about the history of the organ and about the place of this organ sort of in the pantheon of great organs in the world. Today we're really delighted to be welcoming Angela Kraft Cross from the Bay Area. If you've been coming to our concerts, you have heard her music played here. She is a composer as well as an organist, and she's also an ophthalmologist. So if you have any difficulties, she probably doesn't want to talk to you about those. But I hope you enjoy her playing today. Please help me to welcome now Angela Kraft Cross.
Thank you so very much. It is so wonderful to be here visiting in Washington, D.C., in this very beautiful space with this beautiful organ, and we have had an absolutely wonderful week here. The first piece that I just played is a piece that actually was born about a year ago, but its seeds came from earlier. Our church is heavily into social justice, and Martin Luther King's birthday weekend was almost like the high holy days of the Congregational Church of San Mateo. So every time on his birthday weekend, I would improvise a postlude that was basically the seeds of what has become this piece. So this one you recognize We Shall Overcome as being the main theme, and then the Methuen, which is the mother tune to Precious Lord, Take My Hand, which was Martin Luther King's favorite hymn, is the middle section. I would like to follow that now with a piece that was written by an Afro-Canadian-American composer named R. Nathaniel Dett. And when I was reading up on this composer, he started in the late 1800s and was into the early 1900s. Well, the dates are there, 1882 to 1943. And he was an amazing guy. He basically was born and grew up near Niagara Falls, and he eventually found himself at the Oberlin Conservatory, which is sort of near and dear to a lot of our hearts. And the interesting thing to me, he got his bachelor's there, and one of the things Oberlin is very proud of is that we were the first, basically, school to admit blacks, and that's still a moment of pride for all of us. But even when he was like 30, he went back to school, and I think it was at Juilliard that he got like his master's degree. So he was a fellow that was into continuing education. In his music, you hear, the classical strains of like late Romanticism, but mixed in there, you also hear the Afro-American spirituals coming through. This piece, called His Song, is from a suite. It's actually a piano piece originally, and it's from the suite In the Bottoms. But it's a very orchestrally kind of piece which does nicely on this organ. Next, we are going to step across the ocean to France and the 20th century with the late Romantic composer, but they've also referred to him as the last of the Impressionists, and that's Maurice Duruflé. His Scherzo, it's interesting, his works, he doesn't have that many of them, but they're all fabulous works, and part of it was that he was a perfectionist, and so he didn't let things go into circulation that he wasn't entirely happy with. And so the Scherzo is Opus 2, and it actually comes from his student years, and you can hear his genius coming through, considering that he's quite a young composer at this point. But I just love this piece, the Scherzo. You're going to hear two different personalities alternating all the way through. You're going to hear, it's a little bit like Schumann with Florestan and Eusebius. You're going to hear the very calm, introverted, meditative voice, and then you're going to hear the really excited one. And they alternate all the way through the piece. And it's a very, very effective work. Thanks. Next, I'm going to share with you another piece that I wrote, and this is from 2022. It's called Healing Waters. And on our coast, especially if you live around San Francisco, or actually even if you're in the South, there's nothing better than the Monterey coast. If you have something that's just not right in your life, and you're feeling sort of down about it, and you're worried about it, and you're concerned about it, you drive to the Monterey coast. And the Monterey coast has these big crashing waves, and there's something very powerful and healing about those waves. And I know I've sorted out a number of issues in my life on that very seashore. So in my piece, Healing Waters, you start with a lot of wave action, and you'll hear the ocean happening. When you hear the oboe come in, that's the plaintive voice saying, my life isn't right, and these are the things that are worrying me. Then you'll hear a little bit more water talk, and there'll be sort of a little bit of a dialogue between the water and the voice. And eventually, the voice has an aha moment, and you'll sort of feel it get more buoyant there, so to speak. And on the last page, as the person is feeling like their life is going to be okay after all, they head back to their car to drive back to their life, and the ocean has the last word. Thank you so much. To close my program today, I've picked two movements of Charles Marie Widor's Eighth Symphony. Now, for you, those of you who are not familiar with Widor, he was a composer who had an amazingly long life. He went all the way from 1844 to 1937, and he was one of the premier French Romantic organ composers who wrote in the French symphonic style, thanks to an organ builder named Cavaillé-Coll, who was building symphonic organs, as in organs that emulated symphony orchestras. And Widor, over the course of his life, wrote 10 organ symphonies. And these are all for solo organ, and many of them take like a half hour to play the whole thing. The number 8 actually takes 55 minutes to play the whole thing. So I picked out two of the favorite movements for you on that. Widor's most popular piece is the Toccata da Symphony 5. Symphonies 5 and 6 tend to be what I call the party symphonies. They're sort of like everybody loves those things. And then the 7th and the 8th symphonies are when he's getting to be very, very studious, and he's like looking a lot at a lot of the German composers and what they were doing for orchestra. And his writing actually gets quite a bit deeper at that point. And I think that a lot of his most intellectual and exciting writing is in the 8th Symphony. I'm going to play you the Scherzo movement called Allegro, or it's just called Allegro. And this piece is where you hear that Widor has a very dry sense of humor. And I still think this movement reminds me of Inspector Clouseau, checking out all the clues. I mean, it's an adorable movement. And then I'm going to play you the Mighty Finale after that.